It's rather you say, "Oh, we're so sorry, we couldn't find anybody else, so we had to bring her."
All the good teachers refused.
Exactly. There wasn't anybody else.
We were just talking how very, very lucky we are, because Ani Losang, although she lives relatively close to us in Bern, she is one of the hardest to book teachers in the world, I feel. So very busy. Lots of people invite you and want to hear your teachings and want to benefit from them. So the fact that you find time for us, it's really, really, really amazing. Thank you so much for being here and for making the trip, because to us it's too far away to go to Bern. I'm just joking, but you know it's not easy, and you know we have to get on the train and walk here, take trams. Thanks so much for making the time. I see. I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Johanna. Yes, Johanna. So Johanna is here for the first time.
Okay.
And everybody else, I think, has been here before. So Johanna, we belong to a, maybe some other people never heard that either. So we belong to a international organization called FPMT, the Foundation for the Preservation of the Mahayana Tradition. It's a international association with 160 something centers like this and bigger, and ours is very small and very modest, but there are some amazing meditation centers around the world. And it was started by two lamas, one born in Tibet, one born in Nepal, but on the border of Tibet, Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche on the right here. And Lama Yeshe already passed away. Lama Zopa Rinpoche still is the spiritual director of FPMT. And they made it their life's mission to bring Buddhism closer to Western people. So they studied Buddhism during the day and studied English at night, as far as I heard, trying to bring Buddhism to Westerners. And they started a monastery in Nepal called Kopan Monastery in the 70s, which is still there in Kathmandu. So some of us have been there and got to enjoy it. There are centers in India and everywhere around the world. And centers like this, they are kind of grassroots movement. So we came back from Kopan, Jeff, my husband, and I, many years ago, and we thought it would be really nice to continue. We tried it online, failed miserably because we just couldn't find the motivation to sit down, meditate just on our own and study and so on. And that's how we came up with this idea to start this study group. And I should say that from the people here, Sandra is the one person who was there for the very first meeting we ever had for the study group about 4 years ago. And so nice to see you that you're still here. And many of us actually stuck together. So we are just kind of a growing group of friends. It's nothing big, nothing formal, nothing super professional. We meet now more and more actually, because now we got this location for 1.5 years or so. So we meet now more often, or have different options now for different meditations, study programs. Hi. Hello, good morning. No worries. Find yourself a seat, either on the bench or on the cushion. There are 2 cushions still free. So whatever you prefer. Or you can have an armchair too. I see that that's not taken in there. So we meet, we study Buddhism, we meditate together, we invite sometimes very esteemed and amazing teachers here. Everything can be found on our website. And one last thing I want to say is that we are non-for-profit, so we don't charge for courses, but we have lots of bills to pay, obviously. So if you want to contribute to it, to cover our costs, then feel free with joyful heart to contribute to this, because it's one thing that brings us a lot of joy. So if it doesn't feel right, then don't. But if you want to, please support us, because that helps us to organize things like this and have the location and things like this. So thank you very much. And now that's about Laksam, about Ani Losang. Ani Losang has been a nun since she was born. Born bald already.
I had a very different life before. It looks like 2 lives, so maybe.
For me, it's been forever, because since we've known each other. So Ani Losang was also one of the first people we talked to about wanting to start the study group. So she's been a huge support for us for the last 4 years, sometimes remotely, sometimes when we are in despair and say we cannot do it anymore, we're too tired, have too much to do. She would be like, don't give up, it's worth it. It's you know, we offer something valuable to people in Zurich, and then coming, visiting, teaching. Thank you very much, Ani Losang. She spent years and years in Dharamsala, in the Tushita Centre, as the resident teacher there for, I think, 12 years, Ani Losang.
20. 17,
okay.
I think.
So 20 years in India, and originally from the high mountains in Switzerland.
No. No, from very close from here, from Brook, originally. Okay. But we went skiing.
But you are a skier, right?
We went skiing a lot.
You don't go anymore, right?
No, I just said to Jeff, last weekend I was in the valleys, and I came back Sunday evening, and I tell you, coming back from Valleys to Bern Sunday evening, all the skiers, and just, you know, the train pulls in, you can feel their nervousness. Will I get in? Will I get a seat? Can I put my skis somewhere with the boot? I thought, poof, I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore. Yes. You know, I just had my little backpack, and that was it. It was very easy.
So traveling light, but living in Bern now, there's an PMT center, highly recommended also in Bern, where Ani Losang starts teachings more often, and just an hour and a half away. We've talked about death, like for whatever reason, it seems to be our karma that the first course we attended of Ani Losang's, I believe it was in Kurwalden, yes. So really, really nice that you come back here to talk about the topic that we don't often want to talk about or don't feel comfortable talking about, but somehow are all confronted with it over and over. So this weekend, for good or for bad, we talk about death, and thank you for your guidance in the topic, Ani Losang. Welcome, and also welcome everybody here, especially Johanna is here for the first time. You've been here before, but I forgot your name.
No, Lorenzo.
Lorenzo, nice to see you again, Lorenzo. And everybody who comes weekly, supports the group, meditates with us, studies with us. Thanks so much. We would not be able to do it without you. And I always say that if it was just the two of us, Jeff and I, and Ani Losang here, probably the group would be gone for a very long time. So thanks so much for being here, and enjoy the weekend.
Okay, thank you, Nina. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for Nina and Jeff too. You know, they have both very, very busy jobs and do a lot of work and still give their time actually to make the Dharma available with, I think, how to say that, like backwards pay probably. You know, not being paid, but being, you know, paying backward. Like Investing, yes. Right. So it's like, it's very, very kind when people have this enthusiasm to really try to make the group survive and even be prepared to pay out of their own pocket, not just giving their time, but also to pay out of their own pocket so they can pay the rent. It was the same way in Bern also. And since many years, it's like, you know, like we have absolutely no financial problems. And even though we're still a small group, but it's like, I think when you have this very pure motivation of people who start the group, then you don't have to worry, we'll keep going. Even when they're not, like Ruth is gone, and so some other people will show up and continue. So that's good to know. So motivation is very important. And this is how maybe we start with a small reflection that you check your own motivation for being here. I know it sounds a bit strange because I do workshops with kids now and teenagers, and then I get feedbacks from the teachers. I would like to get the feedback from the kids because I'm doing it for the kids, not for the teachers. So one of them said, well, you know, she found it a bit of a shame because I talked about motivation and knowing where you want to go, because she was teaching them that they have to be in the present. I said, like, okay.
They're like, what the hell is this?
Yeah,
what are you talking about, lady?
So what, you just float or what? Anyway, so motivation is always kind of, the purer your motivation, I think, when we talk about karma, also when we talk about impulses that we create in us, the purer your motivation is like, then the less you are attached to that, it will happen right now. So this is the thing. Motivation doesn't mean that you think I want it to happen right now, because I saw some of you already before, so you know quite a bit about Buddhism, I think. And to put it in short terms, in Buddhism means think very big, look very far ahead, and then start where you are. So with this think very big is like, you know, the goal that you want to attain. And since I'm quite happy that I can't talk Buddhism here, because there's some places I teach Buddhism, but they're not so happy, so it needs to be secular and all this. But here, so the goal really is that you want to attain full awakening, meaning you want to be free from your own negative emotions, and especially the wrong views of seeing things in a way and then believing that they appear the way that they exist, the way that they appear, especially that one, like, you know, this dualistic view of me here and the world out there, and it has nothing to do with the way I see the world. There's nothing to do in what state my mind is and all these kind of things. And this would be called wrong views in a way. And then we make this separation, me and others, and we don't see how connected we are. Yeah, with us, and then we feel like an individual, which is Venerable Birgit mentioned it. I mean, it's like individual means not dividable. Yeah, but we are all just parts. I mean, we're all dividable. We're not individuals. Also, we are part of a whole, which Einstein says that we call the universe, but we see ourselves as just separated from others, and this is why we have problems. Yeah, then whatever is good for me, even if it's bad for all the others, it's still very good. Yeah, and then we act like this, and then we have attachment, kind of desire for things we want, which are usually the wrong things, or usually not a guarantee for our happiness, just it looks like it, you know, like, we'll talk about these, what is called 8 worldly concerns. It's like we have some kind of, I don't know, we learned it, or I don't know where it comes from, that we think if I have no financial problems, if I have a healthy body, if I don't have pain anywhere, if people like me, then we think that we will be happy ever after, isn't it? Because whenever we're not happy, we put the blame on, oh, not enough money, can't pay the bills, have no friends, I'm sick, isn't it? And then we forget that even though sometimes we have moments when all of this is absent, we don't have any financial worries, all the bills are paid, there's no pain in the body, we do know we have friends that we like, but still it's like, ugh. Have you ever noticed that? Did you then ever ask yourself, okay, when I'm not happy, I see where the problem seems to be, like financial problems, no friends, pain in the body, no comfort, on all this. But now that all of this is lacking, like I don't have any of these problems, I'm still not happy, maybe I'm wrong. Have you ever asked yourself that? Yeah? And then, of course, for Swiss people, it's very, very difficult not to feel guilty. You see, because we see how, you know, like Syria, Africa, the whole Middle East, Turkey, Hong Kong, now China, and then we here, you know, in paradise, and man, I'm still not happy. And then we feel guilty. And then we're also sad, and then we think it's enough. Isn't it? This kind of guilt stuff, you know, it makes us feel not being able to enjoy what we have. And I think somehow deep down we think, okay, I feel guilty, so I kind of punish myself. I can't enjoy anymore. So I'm part of the world now who suffers, so it's okay. That's how we are. Instead of just enjoying what we have. I mean, to have a joyful life is so nice. It's so beautiful. But sometimes we don't dare, because we see all the misery around us. And then we think it's cold-hearted when we are joyful, isn't it? I remember when it was like 9/11 and I was in Paris and we were in the metro, and I was with a friend who was very funny, and both of us laughed. People were looking at us as if like, how can you laugh when this has just happened? Yeah, so this is how we are. So thinking about death and thinking that we are going to die, I think is like, should be helpful to make your life more joyful, because more joy you have in your life, the more you will be able to be of benefit to others. You will have more space in your mind and in your life. You will have more patience, more tolerance. The happier you are, the less there is a chance that you will be harming others or hurting others, and the more you can reach out to others. So you have a duty to be joyful. Even as Swiss people. How many of you are Swiss? Okay, quite a lot. Me also. Quite a lot, isn't it? It's a Swiss thing. Usually foreigners, they notice it quite quickly. That we suffer from exaggerated guilt feelings of, oh, not good enough, and this kind of false being humble thing. I had to go to other countries to see it, the way Swiss people are. So, national delusions. Every country has national delusions. Okay, so we will do a short reflection that you will, first of all, just to arrive. Reflection means you go a little bit into a different state, like a ritual. As I can already see people kind of starting to, that's part of the ritual. When you say reflection, meditation, then you sit in a way that normally you wouldn't sit, meaning you sit mindfully, relaxed and with a straight back. And a ritual is very helpful, especially also at the time of death, because ritual is it's Father Anselm Grun, he says it in a very nice way. It's like closing one door and opening the other, like closing the door to the normal worldly stuff and then going into something a bit more wholesome or holy or calm, quiet, something like that. Okay, so that's why rituals are quite helpful, and I can feel it when I go sometimes to dying people. The moment I sit down and I start talking, already the ritual has begun. I can feel the energy shifts, even though I haven't really done anything yet. But it's like, and it's nice. It's nice to see that something is different now. Okay, so we go a little bit different space with the reflection, a more calm space, and especially from the outer space to the inner space, meaning inside. For that, it's good if you can close your eyes, or if you're used to it to meditate with your eyes open, of course you leave them open. But otherwise, it's quite good. And the way actually to come into the present, very good way, is always connecting with your body. To really be aware of your body. And to know that you are sitting. I know again, it sounds very strange when I say, now know that you are sitting. If you're new to this, you might say, but I know that I'm sitting. I knew that I was sitting. No, we didn't know. We were somewhere else with the thoughts. So this is what meditation is all about, is in order to know directly, to be aware. Because all of our suffering comes from lacking awareness. So just know what's going on in the present. When thoughts come of past or future, notice them, let them be, don't follow them. And so the first step we do in a reflection or in a meditation is always to relax. And a very quick and very good way to relax, there's a few ways you can do this, but the one I find most helpful, you imagine breathing with your whole body. I know again, it sounds strange because you're breathing with your lungs, but your mind can do that. Meaning you hold your whole body in your awareness and you're thinking the whole body is breathing, kind of expanding, come back in. Just try it out. Might work, might not work. Don't need to move. Try to release the tensions by just being aware of them, and then the muscles actually let go. Another good way is when you breathe in, you notice your body sensations. When you breathe out, you become wide and spacious. Like it's especially the face that we're holding small tensions. So when you breathe in, be aware of your face. When you breathe out, let go. Become soft, open, spacious. Okay, then you just check your own motivation. Why you are here, why you're giving this Sunday of very nice weather, or Saturday today. Because the motivation will lead us where we want to go. And as I said before, the bigger you make it, the more far-reaching then it will carry you. So of course it can be because you're interested in your own death. It can be because you want to learn things that then might be of benefit to others when you are with somebody who's dying. If you are a spiritual practitioner or if you're a Buddhist, you wouldn't just think of death and then just this life, but also future lives. By saying or by thinking, I'm doing this in order to, as much as possible, to prepare. So next life also I can continue with my spiritual practice. You have this kind of view when things are not going the way you want them to go in this life, not so bad. Or you could even think, I'm doing this because I want to get to know my mind. I want to understand why I have negative emotions to be able to apply antidotes. Finally, liberate myself from being under the control of negative emotions, which we all are. And then, of course, if you are a Mahayana Buddhist, then you would think, I'm doing this because it is part of my spiritual journey to full awakening, to become a Buddha, so I can benefit all sentient beings in whatever way they need to be benefited. So check. What is your motivation? And since we are already sitting and have calmed down a bit, maybe it's a good occasion also to look at the mind, because some of you might not have heard how the mind is being described in Buddhism, because it's very important also, because that's what we're working with. So you can get a direct experience of what the mind can do, the functions of the mind, maybe not of the nature of the mind itself, but definitely the function of the mind. So for example, you can hear. If your eyes would be open, you could see. Of course, you need an organ, you need light, and you need a shape, color. But then behind just the sense organ, there's something that we call consciousness, eye consciousness, that recognizes shape and color. With the ear consciousness, we recognize sound, not necessarily the meaning of the words, but just sound. With our nose consciousness, we recognize smell, so try to detect the smell that you were not aware of before. It's not that the smell wasn't there, it's just that you were not aware of it. And try to see also what the mind does when you are totally present with what the senses are picking up, what mind state that produces. Because these sense experiences are quite a good object of meditation also. To be present, to calm down, to open up. Then another sense perception is taste. Might be aware of a taste in your mouth. And you can feel how the attention is moving around from one sense object to the other. And then there's touch. So wherever your body is making contact with something, like your hands on your knees or in your lap, or sitting on the floor, on the cushion, you can feel hard, soft, rough, smooth, cold, hot. Don't judge anything, try not to go into pleasant or unpleasant. But this is the next thing that the mind is doing. It picks something up, be it a sound, a smell, taste, a touch or a sight, and then by making contact with these objects, a sensation arises or a feeling of pleasant, unpleasant or neutral. This happens automatically. There's nothing you can control there. There's nothing you can change. But then we start to have emotions about these sensations and thoughts. So the pleasant things we want, so we start to grasp. Or at least we judge, oh, this is nice. If there's pain, which is quite good. If there would be a slight, small pain, then we want to push away, we tighten up again, and we make it worse. We don't want to see it. The pain looks as big as a brick. If you start to explore it, we see that it is dynamic, working, moving. So the mind has emotions. And when we talk about positive or negative emotions, it's not that the positive emotions feel good and the negative emotions feel bad. It's that the negative emotions create negative actions which then lead to suffering. That's why they're called negative, because none of us wants to suffer. And then now you can turn towards the thoughts, which is like a river flowing or like a waterfall. Constantly commenting on things. I like, I don't like, no good, this great. Like a radio reporter. And we can't kind of turn off the radio. So just watch it and you will see as you become aware of a thought, the thought itself stops. But then another one comes up and another one and another one. So this is what we call mental factors, what we were just looking at, and the 6 consciousnesses that can pick up their objects or recognize their objects. That's what we call mind. It's not material. It has no beginning, it has no end because it cannot be created, and it is depending on the moment before. So the goal of spiritual practice is to recognize the mind and then not to suppress anything, not to fake anything, not even to manipulate anything, but just with that kind of very deep yearning for well-being and happiness that is always there, knowing that this is what I want: freedom, space, openness, love, compassion, courage, and so forth. And being aware that something else is there that is preventing these positive states of mind to come up, by just being aware, very often it modifies itself. Because these, what we call negative emotions, are just covering up the very natural spaciousness, the very natural goodness, and the very natural intelligence of our mind. And by being aware of, let's say, your desire, your anger, your jealousy, your arrogance, then the mind takes on the aspect of being aware and is not in the desire, the anger, the jealousy, or the arrogance anymore. And then another good thing is that if when you learn to watch your emotions, to be aware of them, not to be afraid of them, but to be aware of them, you don't identify with them. And then they don't have so much power over you. And at the moment of death, this will be very, very helpful. Okay. Sounds all very easy. It is simple. Just look inside, just watch what's going on. But then our habit to be outside is so strong that it needs a lot of training to be able to be inside and to be aware of what's happening all the time. But it comes with years of practice. And this is why you need places like this, because alone, if you don't have much results, you give up very, very quickly. But you come here, not just here, any other group that is teaching you how to sit, how to watch, how to be aware, then you exchange with other people, and then they also say, it's very difficult, I'm not aware, this and that. And also it can be quite, at the beginning, it can be quite a bit sad, because I thought I was a good person before I started to work inside. And I was like, when they said the first noble truth, that everything is nature of suffering, I said, what? No, my life is okay, I'm wonderful. So I had a lot of rejection towards these teachings at the beginning. Somehow, yes, it seemed logic, but many of the things they said, I couldn't accept. So, especially the religious part. So please, also, I would like to encourage you, whatever doesn't feel right for you, just maybe not say this bullshit and all this, because you just maybe create some blocks in your mind, but just say, this is not for me. Because it's for me now, all this has become really valid, okay? But it took time. I had to hear it many, many times, and it took time. But it's important that you're not just accepting anything because I'm saying something, that you check, does this make sense for me at the moment? If it doesn't make sense for you at the moment, just leave it aside, yeah? Like, Buddhism has so much to offer, and there's so many teachings, and there's so many different Buddhists. There's no such thing as the Buddhism. It doesn't exist. And it comes a lot in packages, like a lot of it is also cultural in Buddhism, yeah? But what is always there in Buddhism, what should be there in what they all have in common is this, what is called the Four Noble Truths, right? It's like the Noble Truths of suffering in a way, a big word, like more that dissatisfaction. I mean, even if a life like here in Switzerland, there's a lot of dissatisfaction. It's very easy for us to be stressed and frustrated, and we're struggling, and we're running, and we're doing, and we're trying to get, and then we die at one point or the other. Everybody, yeah. It's not so satisfying if you look at all the effort that we're making to build up knowledge, money, houses, friends, possessions, and then the time of death, we have to leave it behind. Yeah, and we don't really invest so much in a good mind state, because as long as it's not so bad, all these outer things, they're quite okay, because we have the opportunity to switch. Like, if this one is boring, okay, then I go to something else. If skiing becomes boring, okay, then I do spiritual practice. Maybe that will bring me more. It's definitely cheaper. If you're worried about the climate, I tell you, meditation is perfect. Is 0 CO2 emission. You don't need to go anywhere. You can do it in your home. All you need is, like, you can take your cushions that you sleep on at night and put it underneath your bum. You need something to support your ankles so that they're not on the bare floor, because otherwise your legs go to sleep or it hurts. And that's all you need. But you need somebody to tell you how, because otherwise you get a bit confused. But even though you don't want to go anywhere, it's like YouTube and, like webcast and all these kind of things. So we can do a lot for the environment if we become spiritual practitioners, because also you become, whether you like it or not, you become more content. Yeah, you need less things in order to be happy. Yeah, whatever comes is fine. And that sounds very boring, but it's not, because it gives you a lot of space to do other things. Yeah, like Nina last night, she said to me, do you need anything, like, for when I come, because I'm going to sleep here? So then I thought, no, I still have food at home, so I quickly cooked it and put it in a Tupperware, And that's it. And I would never have done that 40 years ago, you know. I would have at least gone, where is a restaurant I can go out to eat? It's like, it's not important anymore. And do I come across as somebody really sad and poor, you know, kind of depressed? Or no, it's not important anymore. And I'm happy that it's not important anymore, because it's so practical. Your life will become quite practical, I think. So that's one of the advantages. And then also, if you don't have to amass so many things in order to be happy, it's easier to go, you know, since we talk about death and impermanence, because you don't have to worry people have to clean up after you if there's not so much to clean up. You don't have to worry who will get the things, because nothing there. Yeah, well, you know, I mean, you're laughing, but I have contact with families when somebody has died. I tell you, the possessions, the less possessions, the less problems. The more possessions, the more problems, you know. I mean, somebody can get very upset about getting 800, is a specific example, about getting 850,000 francs because the brother got 1.5 million.
Wow.
Yeah. My mom left 8,000 francs. I divided it into 4, and that was it. So it's like, I'm very grateful to her, really, that she spent it all. Because then there's no difficulties, and there's no jealousy, and there's no like this. So this is what I mean. As a spiritual practice has a lot, not just for us, but also for others. It will be easier to be with. If you want, you know, like, that's another thing. If you don't have friends, maybe you have to ask yourself why you don't have friends. Also, it's not always the friends' fault. It can also sometimes be our fault, isn't it?
It's definitely the friends.
And also, what was that? I don't hear
It's
well.
definitely the friends.
It's definitely
The
not
friends.
not the friends' fault. No.
I'm just joking.
Yeah, it's it. Also, in spiritual terms, you know, when you talk about friends and enemy, well, sometimes you read like the Bodhisattvas, the ones who want to attain enlightenment, they have no enemies. Then we go, oh yeah, this is great. I want to become Bodhisattva, then nobody harms me. No, it's not like this. You know, spiritual terms, a friend is somebody that you have friendly feelings towards, even though they're the worst of people that you think, but you still wish them to be happy and wish them to be well. Then that becomes a friend. Worldly terms, a friend is somebody who does something good for me. In spiritual terms, it's the other way around. Yeah. In spiritual term, an enemy is somebody that I want to suffer. And if I can make you suffer, I will make you suffer. That will become the enemy. In worldly terms, the enemy is somebody who makes me suffer. Now, as you go along with this program, maybe I have to warn you, you will come to one module where you learn to look for enemies so that you can work with your mind in order to learn to transform your negative feelings towards people who are not doing what you want them to do. But that's towards the end of the practice, okay? But it's quite challenging, and it's quite, this is, I think, although it seems absurd and it seems strange and it's really not what we're doing, but for me, this lojong, this mind transformation, you know, emptiness, compassion, all this, I still haven't understood these things. Yeah, I don't have any direct experiences. But when I apply lojong methods and I try to see it from another point of view, it works. This is where I can really see this works. And then, of course, then the trust also comes that I see all the other things I don't understand yet, or I don't have any direct experience. I can see, if I continue, then it must also work. And if only the lojong works, I tell you, for me, it's good enough. Yeah, lojong means mind transformation, where you actually then you become so unneedy or unnerdy or whatever, that you already have a good, I don't want to say control over negative emotions, because no control, but you really know how to deal with them. And especially you know how to deal with them with a lot of compassion for yourself. When you're at that point, you're actually going into situations where your negative emotions come up. It's like skiing. You know, I'm so happy I did a lot of skiing, because it's exactly the same thing. If you start with the black slope, you will break your neck. If you start with Lojong, you say, this is not working. Yeah, there's no fun, there's no joy. So you have to start small. What is the smallest? I think the blue or the green one, and then slowly you go on the red one, and then you look for the bumps. You know what? At the beginning, something seemed like an obstacle, and an obstacle for you to have fun skiing because it's too difficult. Towards as you go along, when you know how to ski, you look for them, and you're disappointed when it's all flat. You're like, yeah. So it's a bit like this also in the spiritual practice. Okay, how many? So I don't know how many of you have done all the modules in Discovering Buddhism. One of the modules was presenting the path. Do you remember that one?
Yeah.
Don't worry, all the groups always forget these things.
But we will restart this module. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned this one because this one will start on Tuesday. So our normal Tuesday nights. We will start it once we finish. We are now on Tantra, so we're kind of finished. But most of the group didn't do the beginner module.
Okay.
So we're restarting and presenting the path.
Presenting
after this.
the path.
So it will start, I think, in March.
Yeah. So it's kind of quite good that it comes pretty much at the beginning, this presenting the path, so that it's like going to a restaurant and then you have an overview of the menu. You don't know all the dishes yet, but this is available, and it's so important to know these steps. And for some people, somehow it's so difficult to get that this is a graduated path. There are steps to it, right? But in more simple terms, what you need to understand, or what's good to understand, what you're working with. So usually they call it the basis, the path, and then the result. Shall I ask somebody if somebody remembers, or shall I just tell you what it is?
Better tell us.
So as I'm saying, don't worry. You have to hear this many, many times, and then it sticks. But it's like also in Bern, we've done. I have people who've done twice Discovering Buddhism, and it's like this. So it's okay. Okay, so the basis are what is called the two truths. And so we're not really going into that, but it's good to know there's two levels of existence in Buddhism. And for some people, this might ring a bell already a little bit, huh? Rings a bell, doesn't it? Yeah. Two levels of existence. One is what they call absence of inherent existence or emptiness, how things really exist. If you go into quantum physics, a little bit like this, nothing exists the way it is. It comes into existence because it has causes and conditions, plus a mind that perceives it and gives it a certain label. And then it becomes a cup. From this object, there is nothing that comes from this side that says, hello, I'm a cup. But it has the basis, it is the basis for my mind to put the label cup. That is conventional existence, relative existence. And that one is not true. True in a sense that it is what it seems to be. It appears in a certain way, it appears as a cup, totally. Yeah. Without my mind putting cup, this is a cup, but it's not. But it appears like that. So that is one level of existence, which is not true, but it functions. And I think Penda gave this very good example of a border. A border between two countries doesn't exist. I mean, it's like nothing there. But there is agreement, and that's why it functions. Even if there's no wall or something like that, it still functions. People know, across the river or across over there is Austria or something. Then the houses look different. I don't know if you ever noticed. When you go, for example, in Geneva, when you go from Switzerland to France, you really know shops are different, houses are different, the trains are different, the trams are, everything is different. Why? Because somebody decided, here's the border. Nothing on the ground. So it functions. Conventional existence functions, but it's not true, really true. Like not existing by itself. The border did not come into existence by itself. And so the ultimate truth, as they call it, is that everything that exists on the other hand, is empty of inherent existence. Yeah, it lacks true existence. That's why it can exist. You will hear more about this in the other modules, because that's what we need to understand. This is why we have this problem. This is why we suffer, although we don't want to suffer, because our mind is making a cognitive mistake. Our mind is creating reality, and we don't see that. Yeah, it's very easy. Something that is very delicious for somebody is awful for somebody else. So what is it? Is it good or is it bad? With the kids, I have like a slide. I made PowerPoint. I learned how to make PowerPoint. I have a PowerPoint, that slide, which is there's something shaped like this lying on the ground. And here's a person and here's a person. And this one says 6 and this one says 9. So who is right? So of course everybody says both. It cannot be. Both cannot be right. But neither is right. This can be. It is a relative 6 or a relative 9. You see, if this would be a real 9, it could never be a 6, but it can be a 6 when you change position. And this is why it lacks real 9ish or 9ness existence, so that it can also be something else, and it becomes what your label is. So this is the lack, this emptiness has no function, okay? But it's the nature of things. So these are the bases. This is what we're trying to understand in the spiritual practice. What is relative truth? What is ultimate truth? And not to mix them together, and not to see, and also to see they cannot exist apart from each other. Yeah. You need this absence of inherent existence so that you can have relative existence. Yeah, it's just two sides of a coin, but it's always together. So you can't say, okay, I'm just going to understand ultimate existence and then my problems will be finished. No, even a Buddha has conventional existence, even a fully enlightened being, okay? So you cannot separate these two. So this is what we're trying to understand, and obviously this is the most difficult thing to understand this, because otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here anymore. We would be out of what is called samsara. The path is through compassion and wisdom, or a development of our understanding, but also the heart, okay? So it's not just intellectual knowledge in the spiritual practice. What is most important is that through your intellectual knowledge, you develop your warmness, your heart, your love, your compassion, your kind of spectrum of, everybody wants to be happy, not just my friends. Yeah, but you need both, because if you only have compassion, then not so good. If you only have intelligence or wisdom, is also not so good. So this is the path. So this is what is called the two wings. Then what is the result of it? So for Buddhists, it's like the two bodies of a fully awakened being, of a Buddha, which is the mind and the body, or the form body of an awakened being. So when you know that from the beginning, you know, what are you working with? You know, there is a path to go there, and you also know the result. And I mean, what is a Buddha? I always like to quote Dzongsa Khyentse Rinpoche, because you see, for us, the Buddha is something high and exotic and maybe very far away. But then he says, a Buddha, which means awakened. I don't know who came up with the word enlightenment, because it's not a good word. Awakened. A Buddha is an awakened person who sees reality as it is, and the Buddha's mind is at the height of its normality. So that means all of us, we're not normal. Only when you're fully awakened you become normal. Normal in the sense of, you see, is it normal to harm others? Okay, other way around. When somebody harms you, do you say, yeah, of course, it's normal for people to get harmed, and you just, it's a small thing, with words or kind of looking at you in the wrong way, criticizing you, although you think that I shouldn't be criticizing. Do you think it's normal? And you just brush it away and say, yeah, of course, it's normal. Do you? Okay, you have one person, no problem criticizing him, harming him. He will just say, "Oh, it's normal." When this happens to us, we don't think this is normal. We think this is cruel and it's not right and it shouldn't be like this, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so that's why Buddha doesn't do it, because it's not normal. It is not normal. Yeah. So a Buddha's mind has never any wish to harm somebody else. And there again, then the kids go, "Oh, so you're kind to all the people." I said, no. I mean, if somebody needs to be stopped and need to be put into prison, it's not out of kindness you let them do whatever they want. So this is why you need the intelligence also. How to be kind. What is a kind act? When somebody is a kind of, obsessive murderer or something, it's good to put him into prison and not to let him out. Not just for the people he's going to kill, but also for himself. Yeah, so a bit like that. And when somebody is kind to you, are you totally surprised and say like, "Oh, wow, imagine what they did." Yeah. Have you ever noticed that the acts of kindness that you are doing stick much more in the mind than the acts of kindness that we are receiving? So there we see, you see, again, we make these differences, although it is exactly the same thing. But if we don't investigate, then it looks like it's the same. Or when I'm angry this way, and I'm angry or upset at somebody else, it looks as if it's totally justified. Totally. Yeah. When the anger comes this way, it's never justified. So it's anger. So a bit like this. So this is why a Buddha's mind is at the high of its normality, because he's not under control of negative emotions anymore. Actually has eliminated all negative emotions. Okay, so this is the path.
Why do you say enlightened is not a good word?
Huh?
Why do you say enlightened is not a good word?
Well, because we use it in a way. When somebody is very smart, "Oh, you're so enlightened," or whatever. Yeah, it's because the word itself is just letters, right? But what we put to it, and awakened is because that's what it means. Buddha means awake. We think we are awake, but we are just, as opposed to Buddha, we're just dreaming. Okay, and we mistake the dream for real, whereas the Buddha says, "Hey, guys, it's just a dream." Yeah. So, but it's just personal opinion, so it's okay. Bodhicitta means the mind of enlightenment, mind of awakening. Also, if you have the choice between enlightenment and awake, what do you prefer? Huh? You don't know? Okay, that's good. You're totally equanimous. You don't have any preference.
I've never thought about it.
Yeah, think about it. Okay, so when we go on this path, because you can see it's a long way not to be under the control of negative emotions anymore, and having developed all qualities, because a Buddha's mind is omniscient, sees past, present, future of all beings, has universal compassion for all beings, has universal love, and has the skills, has the knowledge how to be of benefit to others. So that's probably not next week happening. Huh? What do you think? Probably not. Okay, probably not next week happening. So it's kind of a long journey. So first, when you go on a long journey, also you have to prepare. Yeah. So when you look at the Lamrim, and this is what we looked at, or that you looked up in Discovering Buddhism. For some, you might have done what is the mind, because that is very crucial, that you understand what the mind is. So you understand that the mind also continues at the time of death. It comes from somewhere, It's quite strange also here, we in the West, that I think there's hardly anybody who is totally convinced that nothing continues. But we're all convinced that it started at birth. It's not logic, yeah. Because if something continues, then this life was your past life, which has existed before next life, which then will be your present life. Wherever you are, whether you go to hell or to paradise or in some dimension, I don't know what your view is. So it's quite good also for yourself to when we talk about death and impermanence, or death and rebirth, it's quite good for you. What is my view? What happens at the time of death? You know, I don't know. But what is your view? What is your impulse? What is your feelings? Yeah, sit down and think about this. And then everybody has their personal view. Nobody knows, yeah, but we can have views. When I was small, I always believed that there was something before and there's something after. And I grew up in Broek. I don't know how it is now. I think people tell me it's quite yuppie. Then it was very bourgeois and very boring. Argau, yes. I didn't dare to come to Zurich. You know, when they hear you're from Argau, it's like, huh? It's like you're really the last of the last. Is it still like this?
A little bit, I think. I'm not from there, but...
Yeah, it's still like this, isn't it? Then I started speaking Dutch, so I didn't recognize where I was coming from. That's how it was. That's how we do, isn't it? So there, you know, definitely nobody spiritual practice Buddhism in the 1950s. Can you imagine? You know, rebirth, like they all thought I was a big gaga. You know? So then with Buddhism, then it started to make sense. So I don't know where I got it from, but definitely not from my environment. So when we want to go on this path, it's really good to see, do we have what we need? Yeah. So then we start talking or thinking about what is called precious human rebirth. Yeah, that we need certain things in order to go on that spiritual path. So in a precious human rebirth, it's like you need to have, for example, you need to have interest. You need to have a mind that is open enough to hear things that maybe you never thought about, or you know, not so sure. Because if you want to know, if you want to learn something new, you need to be open, because it might contradict what you already know. Yeah, so that's always. Sometimes people come in order to affirm their views that they already have. Then you don't need to come. If you really believe it, then it's fine. Yeah, but so we need to. But do we have what we need? So you need interest. You need capacity. You need a place where you can practice. You need to have a body who is more or less healthy. You need to have a mind who is more or less healthy. I mean, there's a very specific what's called 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses, but we don't have to go through them totally, because I think we can see. Yeah, you need to have time. Yeah, I think it has maybe changed a little bit also with this. What is a precious human rebirth? Yeah, you need to have, I think, as a human being, you need to have living examples, because the spiritual path is not easy. I don't know if anybody has ever noticed it. Yeah. It's boring. You have to sit long hours. There's pain. You have to watch and see your negative emotions all the time. You have to learn to give up on things. You know, with the climate change now also, we all are very interested that the climate doesn't become warmer anymore, isn't it? But how many of us are ready to really give up the things that we learned that they're very convenient? Because it will be expensive, this whole thing. You know, if we want to reverse the whole thing, it will be expensive. Who is prepared to pay? Oh, the rich should pay. Oh, well, do you think we're rich? Yeah. Compared to others? Compared to many others on this planet, we're millionaires. Yeah. So this is it. It's like with the spiritual path also, we have to learn to be generous. We have to learn to be patient. We have to learn to be enthusiastic. What else? Ethical. Ethical is the basis for the whole thing, you know. So even if it's not convenient, even if it becomes expensive, you practice ethical conduct. Even if nobody here would find out that you weren't ethical or whatever. Yeah. So when all these things are there, then we call it precious human rebirth. Yeah, living examples who role models that are practicing this. Like anybody knows the Dalai Lama?
Not personally.
Personally, no. But have you heard of him? Have you seen him? Have you Would you go if somebody gives you a ticket to these teachings?
Yes.
Somebody tells you, would you like to have dinner with him? If Mr. Trump comes and somebody says, would you like to have dinner with him? Would you go? Maybe, yeah, talk to him. You should talk to him in a very gentle and very kind of, first praising him and then. This is skillful means, because people who have power, we have to start to be nice to them so that they listen to us. If we just scream at them, they're not going to change anything. Yeah. Okay, do we have what we need? If we want to change something, if we want to transform the mind, if we want to, here in this case, prepare for death, do you have what you need? You're sitting here, looks like yes, for the moment. Yeah. Then the next question is, will it last? And this is this module here, you know. We start to think about impermanence. Yeah, like I just told Nina, you're quite lucky that I'm here because I had a small accident yesterday. I was taking a box from above and there was a hammer kind of lying in it, and the hammer went like POM right here with the head in, you know, a head. But it didn't do much. It was just bleeding a bit, and I could have broken my teeth, you know, because it really went like right in. So many things can happen. You know, we can plan and plan and plan and plan, but then it still doesn't happen what we want to happen. Yeah. So in order to use a situation in a good way, you have to ask, will it last? Because then we use it. Have you ever noticed that we start to appreciate the things once that they are finished? That we're sorry that we didn't appreciate them enough when they were still here. Yeah, so we can start appreciating them now by understanding that it will not last. And this is one of the few total misconceptions that we have, not here, but here. And what this whole thing about the spiritual practice is also, this is why we're sitting and this is why we're doing these reflections again and again and again and again, so that it goes from here to here. Because as long as it's only here, it's a good step, but it doesn't change your tendencies, it doesn't change your habits. Yeah. Once it goes down here, then slowly, the habits are changing. So don't judge yourself. Don't get mad at yourself. Don't be sad when you see that, gosh, I know all these things. Why am I still reacting in that way? You will learn it in the karma module, why this is like this. Yeah, because we have all these very, very, very strong tendencies that are very, very difficult to loosen up. Yeah. So don't judge. Just be happy that you see all the dirt. I know it's not so nice, but at least you see it. Most of the people don't even see it. Yeah. And then, of course, then the question is, what comes after? Like, what comes after this life? So these are the few steps. If we embark on a journey, do I only have this life, or kind of do I have more chances to kind of work on this path? Because if it's only this life, I would be very small. I don't think there would be a Buddha if there's only one life, because it is difficult to change our mind and our habits. Okay? So what comes after depends on what we are now or what we did before, and this comes then after, probably in the next module, is karma, I think, on the program. Yeah? Okay. Okay, so what do you think? Why is it so difficult to talk about death? Although I have to say it becomes quite fashionable to talk about death. All of a sudden it comes out of the closet. I'm in Bern, we have the House of Religion. Last year, the whole of the 6 months was the whole thing, all the topics were about death and dying, which is nice. Why do people, like, you go to a party, you start talking about death, why do you think then people think it's something morose?
People think it's depressing, they don't want to think about it.
They don't want to. They think that, people think that if I don't think about it, I don't die. Because there are people who say, no. If you think all the time about death and dying, and you talk all the time about death, you will die sooner. Like kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. Well, if that would be the case, then since nobody ever thinks about death, nobody would die. If only the people who die who think about death is like this. But it's because it will be a difficult moment, I think. So since it will happen anyway, and we can't change it, and we can't really make that many plans, people think, then we don't want to talk about this. One thing is, we don't want to separate from things that we are very much attached to. We're afraid we can't cope. I don't know if any of you have been with dying people. Yeah. We all want to kind of live a happy life and have a quiet, peaceful death, but very often it's not like this, because the time of death, there's a lot of suffering, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of tiredness, there's a lot of exactly what we don't want, and we haven't learned to accept while we were living. So whenever you have pain now, this is a very good chance to practice patience and accept it. The last few weeks I spent nights usually with somebody who was heavily depressed. Whatever, I don't say anything anymore because nothing helps. I'm just there. Yeah. And so because at the beginning I said, well, that's the way it is. So the only choice you have, whether you accept it or whether you don't accept it. And if you accept it, then, you open up a little bit, you become softer. So she says she's accepting it, but she's not accepting it. She's accepting it for it to go away. I accept, then it will go away. That's not accepting. And so yesterday morning she came and said, okay, this is the way it is, I'll accept it, I'm fertig. I'm finished. So I said, look, now don't talk to yourself like this. This is very cruel. This is like a father who, the child is suffering and the father doesn't have time to tend to it. So if we're so harsh with ourselves, it's like, this is not a way of accepting. If you accept it, it has to come with compassion. I know, again, it sounds, a lot of in Buddhism sounds very contradicting. So in a way, you accept that you're suffering. Then you sit down and you go, may I be free from that suffering? With a very gentle voice, with a very gentle feeling in your heart. And then I'm not the only one who's suffering from this depression. I'm not the only one who is going to die. Yeah. To open up a little bit. That's a way of accepting, combined with compassion. Yeah. How does that sound? Strange, eh? No. Yeah, exactly. If you learn in very simple mindfulness meditation or awareness meditation, if you learn to listen inside, if you learn to see what's going on inside, you'll see the difference. When you sit down and say, wow, yeah, I'm depressed. I'm not the only one. May I and all others be free from that depression. Then something opens. But if you go just in your head, yeah, okay, that's it, I'm accepting it, fertig it. There's no softness, that's missing, yeah. The compassion. It's okay to have compassion. It's not self-pity. Compassion is a knowing that it can end. Because I know her. I mean, she has phases like this. I know her since many years. And I tell her, I said, look, it's just a phase like you had before. It's a matter of time. It will get better. But no, it has to get better now. Yeah. Okay, so losing control, I think, for us is one of the worst things, because that's what is happening for her. She can't control anymore. Not her mind, not other people. She's just a heap of misery. I mean, it's terrible. It's really sad. And then, why else is it so difficult to talk or think about death? It has to do with control. Because we like to plan. And then we think when I make plans, I can control what will happen. But we don't know. you know. We don't know what happens after. We don't know where we're coming from. We don't really know where we're going. And so now the question comes, so therefore, can we really prepare for death? What do you think? I would like, not just nodding, you can say something. We go on another 10 minutes, then we make a break, okay? So what do you think? Can we plan? Can we prepare for death?
Yes. Yes.
Huh?
Yes. I think we can prepare our minds.
We can prepare our minds, okay? By doing?
Meditation and other things, so that we can accept this loss of control.
Mm-hmm.
We can die more peacefully.
Right. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah.
I think it's very difficult to prepare because it's such an overwhelming experience, I guess, that I wouldn't think that you can completely prepare.
Okay, you used two words.
Mm-hmm.
We had compare and then we had completely. Okay? Completely prepare and just prepare.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, therefore there's no point of doing all this here. You just do it because it's part of the program.
I think it would be pretty arrogant to think that we can
Prepare for that. Yeah, good.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Now it depends what we think what the word prepare means.
It's always going to come in a different shape or form, right? So it's a bit like you flex a muscle, but it's always going to have a different flavor to it. You can't really prepare for an exact scenario or an exact event.
Exactly.
So of course you can be more ready in terms of how you cope with it.
Exactly.
But an absolute preparation is indeed arrogant or naive. Or
Exactly.
You might be more ready. You will have the muscle through exercise more ready.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so that's what I want. Thank you. That's what I wanted to get at. I think it's still worthwhile to prepare. To think, what shall I do at the time of death? Where do I put my mind? What will help at the time of death on this? But then being totally open that it could be totally different. It's a bit like going on a really, really different journey that you're afraid of. You have to go. It's not a kind of adventure trip where you paid a lot of money. That you have to go to a very dangerous area or whatever. If you prepare well and you did everything you could do, then you start to calm down a little bit and you go into the situation more relaxed maybe, or more open, because okay, there's nothing else I can do but this I did, I think. Yeah. Then when we go in there with the relaxed mind, it's okay. But we have this is something I have to tell you, we have absolutely no guarantee how we will die and this and that, it's like, and the more open we are now, but this is the preparation, the more open we are now and we work with difficult situations that we have right now, then we might have a chance that when things get really tight, that somebody, you might not even be able yourself to remember your practice or what you're doing, but because your mind is familiar with it and somebody sits at your bedside and knows what you've been practicing and they read it for you, then you calm down. And this is where I think religion is really helpful. It's for me, it's very easy to calm. I don't have so much contact with dying people, but I have sometimes. When I go to somebody who is a devout Christian, there's the prayer book there, I just open it, I see what they've been reciting, I start to recite it. If they have a good relationship with God, they immediately calm down. They feel protected. Yeah. If it's a Buddhist, they are familiar with this kind of mantra or that kind of whatever, or that kind of master or the Buddha, then they calm down. But you need to have a good relationship with that object that will protect you then at the time of death. And I think if it is something transcendental, it works better than it's, but you had a lot of money and look, you had a lot of houses, because you have to leave all these things behind. Yeah. So now is the time to find something. We will go through that about these 9 stages, these 9 points, how we think, like after the break or this afternoon. Now is really the time when you're not well, when things get tight, that you check, where's my mind going? Where is it looking for refuge? Yeah, refuge is somewhere where I'm safe. Is it the fridge? Then you go, will it help at the time of death? Probably not. Because at one point somebody told me in one of these courses, my refuge is dancing. I said, yeah, it's fantastic. Because she said, that always works. It always makes me feel better. But I haven't seen many people who are dying dancing. While we are healthy and while we can do all these things, we think we're going to be like this until the end of life. And this is, I forgot, I started saying something, then I didn't finish it. This is one of the big misconceptions that we have. Things that are by nature impermanent, to us, look permanent. When we don't investigate. You come to this place, it looks the same. For me, it doesn't look the same because many things are new. Yeah? So I don't come so often. But if you come here very often, you think it is the same person coming to the same room. Think no. If we would think it, we would go, no, it's not possible. Again, it's just instinct, it's feeling. Yeah. The things that are by nature impermanent to us, they appear as being permanent. And then when they break, we get disappointed. They go out of existence, we get disappointed. If we would understand their nature as being impermanent, we would never be disappointed. If you buy cut flowers, which you shouldn't, again, climate, okay? Like somebody said, tulips now. Somebody said, oh, but they're from Holland. I said, well, do you think they grow without heating the house where they grow them in? It's like even they don't come from far away, but at this time of year, all the flowers that come, again, these are the things, of course, offering to the Buddha and all this, but I stopped. I stopped buying flowers that come not from the flower field. So these are the little things we can do, So, even if it's for the Buddha, and then if people want to bring them, I'm not saying no, but me, myself, I don't buy them anymore. But you look at these tulips that they sell now in the stores, it says Holland, you say, okay, it's not so far away. I don't know if it has happened to any of you. It's nice in the winter flower. But then, where do they grow? In heated hothouses. Yeah. Don't feel guilty if you bought some tulips. You can stop buying them now. Because if we stop buying them, they won't make them anymore. Then it's like, okay, people lose their jobs and this and that. So it's like, as I'm saying, it's going to be a complicated thing to save the climate. Another thing that we have a big misconception is that things that are kind of leading to dissatisfaction, who are in the nature of suffering, it said, we see them as happiness. Buying flowers in January, fresh flowers. But anyway, what I wanted to say with the fresh flowers, if you buy cut flowers, you know that they're impermanent. Then after a few days they go, yeah. Are you disappointed? No. Are you suffering? No, because you knew from the beginning they're not going to last, and then you just throw them away, and that's it. While they're here, you can enjoy them. Yeah. So knowing about impermanence, knowing that things go out of existence, knowing that things can change, it will help us to enjoy them more, actually. Instead of going, oh, wow, already from the beginning. That would be silly, already from the beginning. It's not going to last. Maybe at the beginning it's like this. Maybe at the beginning we prefer to be in this dream world where everything lasts and everything is okay. But then we really suffer when we see their nature. Whereas if we start to grow up and we really see the nature of the things, then we enjoy them while we're here because we know that they're not going to last. And then we don't have to regret that we didn't appreciate them when they were there. Yeah. That's what is meant by living in the present. Knowing that it will end and therefore enjoying it now. It's wonderful. Very simple. Yeah. Then another big misconception that we have, that we kind of project an I or a self in here, which usually sits here or here, that doesn't exist. And this is about emptiness. We totally believe this. We make a reflection on this afterwards a bit. We totally believe that we have a body, we have an I, plus we have a body, we have a mind, plus a me, a self, or an I. because it feels like that. I can feel it. Maybe not now, but maybe if you're very tired or you have then it's like, oh, she said it's going to be a break. I still have 1 minute. Okay, when is this going to end? Then it starts, the eye is starting to come up when something doesn't go the way you want it to go, or when you're very successful. Yeah, also then, I did it, I succeeded. It's okay to be happy. Yeah, but try to catch that feeling like nobody else can do what I could do. Yeah, it's very quick. It's called arrogance. It's very, very quick. It's good feeling. This is why I said in the reflection, not every negative feeling feels bad. Sometimes it feels good. It's still negative, yeah, because again, and we act according to these views that we have, that things are permanent, that whatever is actually in the nature of suffering we think is happiness. What is it? What would you put into that category that we run after and spend a lot of money for? Starts with P. Pleasure. Yeah, pleasure. Nice forms, nice sounds, like nice smells. Like it works as long as you're happy. Then it works, makes you happier. Maybe. The moment you're depressed, none of this works. Absolutely nothing. Yeah, because you need to be happy. Because once your mind is depressed, or when you're angry, everything appears as really bleh. And that's why it doesn't exist the way it appears, because it appears differently to you depending the state of your mind. Okay? So this is another thing we want to really understand, is like to see these misconceptions and then our mistaken actions, because of that's the way we think reality is. Do you understand more or less?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. So this was more or less a little bit the introduction. Then we have like maybe 20 minutes break. Then when you come back, we do a reflection on impermanence. Okay. So why we also talk so much about death for your spiritual practice, this meditation, not just I think also for your life, this meditation on impermanence and death, it is one of the most powerful meditations to make you going when you accept that we are dieable, right? Because then you start to live. Whereas if you put it in a cupboard and you don't want to know, still it sits here. There's a book which is called Living with Death on Your Left Shoulder. From Stephen Levine, I think. So even if you put it away, you still know that you're going to die. Yeah. So then you can't live life according to that. So this is why they say, like amongst all the topics that we have in the spiritual practice, this one is the strongest. That will quickly kind of make your practice going. The same as the footprints in a waterhole, around a waterhole, the ones of the elephant are the biggest. And we know that when people have, they go to the doctor says, oh, sorry, do you have cancer or anything else? There's nothing we can do. You have such and such amount of time to live. There's two ways these people can know. Either they deny it, and then these last few months become really, really difficult, like my brother, or they accept it, and then their life becomes full of quality. With, not just in the whole time. It's also there's anger, there's denial, there's, kind of trying to barter with the Buddha or God or life or whatever. It's like there's all these stages that one goes through. But in general, when people accept it, their life changes drastically because they put priorities. Yeah. I've had people coming to Dharamsala who said, my doctor told me I have 2 more months to live. Now, as a Buddhist, I didn't say it. Maybe these days I would say it. I would have the thought I had, well, you're lucky. You at least you know that you're going to live for another 2 months. I don't know if I'll be dead tonight. He was convinced he's going to live 2 months. Who knows? He can die before. I can die before him. So that's why That is why, because it's in order to kind of, for you to ask, what do I want to do in my life? The moment you find meaning in your life becomes joyful. If it's totally meaningless, then then you get depressed and all this.
I have a funny story that I can share about this.
Yeah?
I have a colleague at work whose neighbor got this kind of news. She had, I don't remember what kind of cancer, but she didn't have more than 6 months, they said.
Yeah.
So statistically about 6 months. So it was somehow at the beginning of the year, and she decided that she is not going to pay the taxes anymore, so that she can save whatever thousands of francs. She took her old falling apart car and drove to Germany to some port there and negotiated with people on ships, and they took her to a country in Africa. I forget which one that she knew about, so that she sailed there so that she can save money. She didn't have to pay anything. She had worked on the ship or something like this. So all the money she had, she left the car. She went to that country and she started cleaning for dogs there, and she started a school there for this 20,000 francs or whatever she had at that time. And that was, I think, 15 years ago. She's still perfectly fine. Didn't get one treatment, nothing at all. Has this organization which is amazing now. Like my friend, that's why I know it, because now some special organization in Switzerland actually bought out her debt because she couldn't come back to Switzerland because of the tax debts, right? So which grew to 200,000 francs or something with time, because it collects interest or something like that. So now they paid for her, so now she comes back once every year for fundraising trip and stuff like this. So that's how I found out about it, because my friend was telling me, I'm like, this is such a cool story, And she's only because she thought that she was going to die in 6 months,
that she had the courage.
She started to live. She had quite boring, kind of crappy life before, actually, and now she is this person who comes and people are waiting for her, and she gives speeches, all this kind of thing. I'm like, that's just really cool.
That's really cool. We don't have a guarantee that it will happen to everybody like this, but it's really good to see, what do I want? What kind of person do I want to be? Then, but also be realistic, look at your possibilities. Very often we think we don't have a choice, but we do have a choice. We really do. But it's up to you. That this life is yours, as one would say in Buddhism. Okay, it comes from mommy and daddy, but still, human life comes from your previous karma. So you created that good situation that you're in now. So then, how you want to use it, this is up to you, right? Also, another story, but she died. But then I had a nun friend who was impossible, really impossible. She was angry, she was screaming at people, telling them they're assholes, she was kicking doors in and all this. Nobody really wanted her, and all that. So she was always wanting something. She had left Tulahul, Tulama Paljar, if anybody knows where that is, really in the Himalayas. Tenzin Palmo's cave. She was preparing that for a 3-year retreat, and she got cancer, and really it had already kind of spread. And usually I was still in Dharamsala, and she was there, and she always wanted something, books or money, or can you help me with the visa, blah, 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 blah. So she had this diagnosis, and she was very, angry, discontent and all that. And so they told her, well, there's nothing we can do for you, it's too far gone. And she said, and with this knowledge that I'm not going to live much longer, I went down to a temple in Manali, because it was Manali Hospital, and I sat in front of this big Padmasambhava. And usually she was sitting in front of this Padmasambhava, kind of using him in a theistic way. Please help me with this, help me with the visa, help me with the money, help me with the... And she said, and I was sitting there and I thought, I have enough money for the next 6 months. I don't need a visa. I don't need to finish that cave because I'm not going to go there to do my 3 years there. She said, and I was so happy. She died. She's not alive anymore. She died after these few months. And but very courageous. And somebody told her that she can come to America to die there, but she went back to this, to Keelung, And in the winter it's 40 degrees below zero. You don't have hot water. You can't fly out. They don't come to get you. And but she had enough morphine with her for her pain. So she died very well next to her lama, who one morning she couldn't open her eyes anymore. It's one of the signs. And so he said, okay, now you do what I told you to do in these last few months. We are going to do puja. And then that's how she died. She had, for many, many years, she had a really terrible life. Her last few months were really beautiful. So what is it? I don't know. It's like this. Do we need a doctor who tells us only so much longer to live until we have the courage to live the life we want to live, or more? I prefer to say to be the person we want to be. Right? Okay. Now we'll make a break until 12 o'clock. Okay, lunch is at 1. Is that right? Or
However we want to. We are flexible.
Huh? You're flexible. Oh, I should have asked.
I'm Swiss, I'm sorry.
Of course, there's many things one can do, but not this, almost this obligation that you have to be open and happy all the time. Otherwise you're stuck in samsara. One of the disadvantages having a very good life, being very happy, very healthy, having no financial problems, is that you don't feel like you want to practice. So having a too good a life is also not such a good thing. Yeah, because many of my school friends, they say, oh, wow, it's very nice what you do, and kind of, you don't harm anybody by doing it. It's like, but I don't need it. And I say, well, yeah, if you don't need it, it's fine. I'm very happy when you're happy and when you're well. But when I have problems, then they come. Yeah, and this is it with this lady, as I said, who is depressed. She wants to know all these methods, but when you're in such a state, you can't practice. This is impossible, So this is why we sit, in order to learn these methods before it gets really difficult, even before death. Now also that we can dissolve these negative emotions, or this narrowness in here, when things get anger, desire, fear, anxiety. So many people suffer from anxiety these days. It's amazing. In Switzerland, like, what? So that we can open up again. And for that, the breath is very, very simple. It's very good. You feel the narrowness and you breathe into it, and you open up. Or we will do some Tonglen meditations also tomorrow. It's very powerful. Not for you to feel better. Yeah, please don't mistake that. You're still in samsara. It's but in order to be able to cope better with the situation, so that it doesn't kind of carry you away, the whole thing. But sometimes when I see ads and publicity of mindfulness, awareness, meditation, I think, they promise you free from stress, free from depression, free from this, free from that, but they never talk about liberation. So I'm not so sure if that it will help you definitely for a while. But this is why also so many people don't stick to it. In these contexts, like you have a lot of change in these groups, if it's just a mindfulness group, because the goal is just here. So of course you start to practice mindfulness in a mindfulness group. Not saying it's bad. I think it's really great because it makes it accessible for so many beings. But then you start to practice, and then at the beginning you start to feel better and more open. But then if that was the goal, then it doesn't go any further. And then also samsara kicks back in, and then again you feel, oh, I'm depressed and it's not working and all this. So when your goal is that you do it for your next life, or for liberation, or for full awakening, then it's not so important what is happening at the moment. Yeah. And you just continue. Okay? Yeah. Okay, so then there's some very official, the disadvantages of not thinking about death, and they talk about daily, and the advantages of thinking about death daily, yeah? Like, for example, how you would do that, you would kind of wake up in the morning and think, this could be my last day. How do I want to spend it? For example, that would be practicing, bring the death practicing into your day. Then the moment you walk out of your house, or even with the coffee, you already forgot, that you had this thought. But at least, in the morning, then in the evening, you could think, one day less in my life where I have time to do what I want to do with my life. That's quite powerful. Yeah, see, when you have a bank account and nothing comes in, and you just see how it decreases and decreases and decreases, then we start to freak out and we start to react with our time that is running out. It's okay. Yeah, because we have a feeling of being permanent. So do you want to start with the disadvantages or with the advantages? Huh? Usually they start with the disadvantages, actually. Okay, so if we... one of the disadvantages is you don't remember your spiritual practice. Now here it says Dharma, of course, because it's Buddha Dharma. But your motivation to either work for a good life next time, that's the lowest motivation, or for liberation, or then for full awakening. Okay, you forget. Because life is taking a lot of space. And it does take a lot of space. So that's one of the advantages. You don't even start, or you don't practice. So again, when we talk about practice, what does it mean, spiritual practice, for you? Because we were upstairs, we talked about meditation cushions and this and that. Is it only the meditation when you sit, your practice?
Purifying the mind. Purifying the mind.
Purifying the mind, exactly. Working with the mind. And not just, on the cushion you have the conditions to learn these things, but then when you do it outside by seeing, oops, again I reacted in this way. Okay, next time I try better. When you feel that your sense of I, me, this negative sense of I, me that creates this narrow feeling in here, when you feel that starts decreasing, when you feel that you're not reacting so much with, stress, frustration, irritation, anger to situations, then you can see, okay, this is working. This is it. It's to decrease our negative emotions or our Pentecosten belastende Gefühle, our things that we would give away if we could give away, and to increase our positive sides of patience, love, compassion, endurance, empathy, having, do you see what I mean? That is the spiritual practice. Sitting, being able to sit for a long time without moving, that's nice, but that's not really what it is. But it is, as you say, it's working with the mind. Purifying the mind of those negative emotions. And for that you need methods. The wish alone is not enough. It needs to be there, but it's not enough. Yeah. And don't wait too long. This is the thing. This is why having young people here is, so wonderful. Because then the mind is still flexible. Although you still have ideas of, having a perfect marriage and a perfect family. When you get older, these ideas, they're not important anymore. So you don't have to run after that. So it's not that, you can only practice when you're young. It's not like that. When you're older, also you have more humor to laugh about your own shortcomings, I think, when you're older, and all, the desire for, should I do this, should I do that, is like, it narrows down. The possibilities of doing what you want to do narrows down. Okay, so if you remember death, then you think about, and then I better start to prepare now. If you don't remember it, then you don't do anything. And then another disadvantage is you do remember the Dharma, but you don't practice. So it's kind of in the mind, I should go to the group, or I should sit, or I should do it. But you don't get to practice. This is a bit what we do sometimes. Then you practice, but you do not practice purely. What does that mean? You practice, but you do not practice purely. What do you think that means?
Maybe we get distracted, so we're kind of practicing, but our mind is anyway attached to other things.
Your intentions are not.
The attentions, the motivation is not pure. It's to be happy now. Yeah, there's also a very nice book by Tsongsa Khyentse Rinpoche called Not for Happiness Now. Yeah. If it is for happiness now, you will probably give up very quickly, especially if you're healthy and if you have money, because then you can, skiing, you go skiing, it's nice, it makes you feel good. You go surfing, it's nice, makes you feel good. You do pottery and you're talented, it's nice, makes you feel good. You do painting, you do whatever, whatever we do in our free time. The result of feeling good short term is much quicker with these pleasant things. Yeah. So usually they talk about the 8 worldly interests. Yeah. So that means we're doing things in order to be free of pain and to get comfort or pleasure. When we look at that, they love it. I mean, this is what we do. Or we're doing things in order not to lose things, but to gain something. We're doing things in order to receive praise, and we're doing things in order not to receive criticism, exactly. And we're doing things in order to have, usually it says being famous or unknown, but I don't think that's what it is. We're doing things in order for people to like us and to recognize us as good human beings, and they're happy when they meet us. This is, it's more about, I want them to like me, then whatever they do is fine. Do you see what I mean? So we have 8 things. You have 4 you don't want and 4 you do want. And then when you get the first category, which is gain, pleasure, then being praised and people like you, then we get all excited. Wow, I'm a wonderful person. I'm really successful. And then when the other one is missing, or when you have the opposite, you get depressed or you're down. Yeah, do we react like this? Yeah, I think we do. And all of this at the time of death is like, it's for nothing. Yeah. And how people see you, you have no control. Some people like you, some people don't like you. It's fine, let them. I also used not to like everybody. Now I'm a bit more balanced there, but it's like, it's okay, But liking somebody doesn't mean you have to be with them when they are harmful. You can move away. Yeah. So this would be not purely like practicing for this life, to have these things it looks as if it's like as if they are the pillar for our happiness. Yeah. So like we think when we have what do we want usually? There's these in the street, they ask people, are you happy? And then you ask, why are you happy? So what do they say? Because
I'm healthy.
Because I'm healthy. Okay?
I have a good relationship.
You have good relationship.
Good job.
Good job.
I'm loved.
I'm loved. Money. Having financial worries is really difficult. It's really, really difficult. It's very difficult to live in a society like this with no money. Yeah. So this is what they usually say. And then we think that this is...
A roof?
Huh?
A home?
A home? Yeah, hardly anybody says I'm happy because I have a home. Because it's so evident that we have a home. We don't even appreciate it anymore. Yeah, we could be happy. So anyway, so these are these pillars. And then we think, okay, I have all these pillars. So if one collapses, it's okay. The others will still hold. But it's not true. If you can't pay your bills, you can think as much as you want, but I'm healthy and people love me. Doesn't help. You still worry. If you have, if you're depressed, your money doesn't help you. Your friends can't help you. Nobody can help you. These other pillars, they're not holding anymore. That's one thing. It's enough for one to collapse, for you to feel bad. Of course, you can say, oh, it would be worse if I wouldn't have all the other pillars that are still holding. But that's not how you feel when one of them collapses. Because I had a burnout one year, maybe a few years ago. And it's like nothing helps. People inviting me, you can come and have a rest. No, leave me alone. That I can pay my bills. It's like here, very tight, very narrow, anxiety. I thought I was totally incapable of doing anything. It's like I was in a really, really bad state. So what I did, I just cancelled everything and told everybody how I was. And somebody said, don't tell them you're a nun. You're not supposed to have a burnout. I said, but I have a burnout. Like, what do you want me to do? And being able to admit... And being able to say, look, I wish it wouldn't be there, but it's there. What can I do? It's like, and it didn't last very long. It lasted maybe 2 months, and then it was okay again.
How did you get out of it?
How did I get out of it? By having a structured life, a structured day, because that was the worst. I didn't know how to pass my days because I couldn't read, I couldn't watch TV, I couldn't sit down and meditate, I couldn't do anything. And I was so afraid, I had this fear of the time not passing. I couldn't sleep, nothing, I couldn't do anything. This is why I can stay with that depressed person now, because I know how it is. Yeah. And so it was before the Dalai Lama came to Fribourg to give teachings. So one in our group had this great idea to make gomasio, to roast sesame seeds and then, make small, because we don't have a shop like here, to make small seeds and then to sell them, because they gave us a stall, and if you have nothing to sell, and then, but they needed to be roasted, and the salt, and then pounded, and all this. We had 50 kilos. We had two big bags of 25 kilos standing in the center where we drink tea. Yeah. I was sitting there with my burnout, looking at things. I said, "Which idiot had this idea?" Because nobody came forward to do it. People said, "Okay, I'll do 1 kilo," but so then I thought, "But you could do it because now you have time to do it." So I found a simple job to do. It's very simple. It's time consuming, but it's very simple. It's not difficult. I made a plan. From then to then I do this, then it has to cool down, then I go for a walk while it cools down, then I weigh them, I pound them, I weigh them. So it filled my day. That was one thing. And it wasn't something just therapy where you draw, but it was something helpful because everybody was very happy that I was doing it. It was something healthy. The center smelled nice because we have all in the same place, apartment and center. And I think that's what it was. I had something useful to do, which I could do. I think, and the practice, of course.
You could do the practice.
No, the practice was to allow to be useless. That was the practice. It didn't help at the moment, it didn't boom, then it goes away. But I just, that's it. I can't, not feeling guilty of being useless. Knowing about the nature of samsara, I think. Yeah. To maybe the practice also to not just being able to practice on the cushion, but also in all these years to learn to watch what's going on inside and to be with what's going on inside without wanting it to go away. Because then you move from the narrowness, you move into the awareness. And then the narrowness is still there, but you're not identifying with it. So it's because of my practice that I learned before that after 2 months it was gone. And I was working like mad at the teachings of the Dalai Lama because I thought, now I see whether it's holding or not. And it was okay, it was held. Okay. So if you don't remember death, then you do practice, but you don't practice purely. That's another disadvantage. As I said, the motivation is for this life only. And you lack persistence, you're not, it becomes difficult, you give up. Because you see what the Dharma practice is like. At the first 2 years is probably very exciting and very happy and all this. Afterwards, it could be, not necessarily, it could be that it becomes boring and you get a bit of an because as I said, for you, be careful that you're not doing too much, because otherwise you have a kind of overflow a little bit. And it becomes boring, and then you wonder why the practice is not working anymore, because at the beginning it made you happy. Now you do the same thing. Not only it doesn't make you happy, it can even sometimes produce resistance and, she's So then again, when you remember death, then you continue. And I tell you one thing, once you're in the boring phase, this is where your mind starts to transform. When you still continue, that's when the things start to happen. If you give up, then you find a new practice, something different, you do something else, and then it's very joyful. And then when that's finished, when that doesn't work anymore, then you jump to something else and something else and something else. So if your motivation is really to go all the way to full awakening, then you just stick to it, And we can do this. When we know that I have to do it, we can do it. And I think another big thing in Dharma practice is people think you have to be joyful doing it. Nobody says so. You only think that you have to have pleasure in doing it. You have pleasure, fantastic. You don't have pleasure, doesn't matter. It's like swallowing medicine, you know. If the medicine is, you really like the medicine, good, nice. If it's disgusting, you still swallow it because you know you need it. Yeah. So that's another misconception about, oh, I can only practice when I feel good, or when it feels good that I practice. Yeah, because we're trying to go against this ego as much as we can. So if you have aversion and you still do it, I think that's when it works the best, actually. You go against your ego kind of, your ego mind. And then also when you don't think about death, it's very easy to commit non-virtuous actions, negative actions. You know, you treat people in whatever way you want to treat them, or like that. Door is wide open. You're not afraid of death and dying. Next rebirth. This is when people believe in something that comes after. But it's quite striking to see also, I know a few people who say, I don't believe in that anything continues, but I'm still afraid of death. It's not logic, is it? Then I say, what are you afraid of? I'm afraid of that there's nothing there. I say, okay. If there's nothing that goes on, nobody will perceive that there's nothing there. So this doesn't make sense. So it means that deep down, somehow, we still believe that something is still there, that then perceives whatever is there. Yeah. So this is why it's good if you find your own views about this. What do I believe? It's just a belief, okay? Many things we just believe. We think we know, but we believe. How many of you know that there's a North Pole? There's a very comfortable chair there. If you want to sit there, you're very welcome to do that.
Thank you.
And if you need to lie down, please lie down. No, I'm not joking. If you want to lie down, because we're not here to damage the body. Yeah. But the chair is comfortable if you want. You can use it. And you're not a failure, and you're not a whatever. It's like this is it. It's also taking care of the body, actually. The spiritual practice. Now I forgot what I wanted to say. Just told Jeff my short-term memory is like, huh?
The North Pole. That we know, that related to the belief that we all believe there is a North Pole.
Ah, yeah, exactly. Thank you. We all think we know that there's a North Pole. We think we know, but we just believe it. I mean, unless one of us has been to the North Pole. I haven't. But we believe the sources, and we don't see any way that there's no reason not to believe it. So same, rebirth is like 50-50, yeah? It's like 50 yes, 50 no. It's quite big chance. And I remember Geshe Topten, who was one of the meditators in Dharamsala. He was one of the people who had direct access to the Dalai Lama, who could just march in. He was the meditation teacher of the yogis who practice in the mountains. So he'd teach at Tushita sometimes, and he would say, yeah, I know you Westerners, you don't believe in death. You don't believe in rebirth. But you know, if you do believe in rebirth, I think you lead a meaningful life. At least you don't harm so much, because you know that something continues and there's consequences of your actions, right? So then, even if there's no rebirth, who cares? At least you led a meaningful life. And he said, but if you don't believe in rebirth, you just do whatever comes into your mind, whatever just you feel like doing. And then if there is rebirth, he said, well, then you'll get a big surprise. And he burst out laughing. So it's like, for Asian people, you know, rebirth is just as normal, and as for us is something don't really know what is going to happen. Yeah, so I don't know, it's just a belief. We will only find out at the time of death, yeah.
But Christianity, they say you can go to heaven or you can go to hell.
Yes.
So that is also
That's also a belief, yeah.
So
yeah.
the Westerners, they are familiar with.
The Westerners are familiar. This is why this kind of this thing comes, that something continues. Yeah, they're familiar with it, but maybe paradise is something happening up there. Paradise they quite like to believe. Hell they say, oh no, I don't believe in this stuff. This is Middle Ages. Don't know. You know, I don't know, because in Buddhism they also talk about hells and stuff like that. where you can be reborn, other dimensions, not just human and animal. These two we can see, but then they talk about other places as well. And then also, if you do whatever comes to your mind, what is very difficult at the time of death, if you die with a lot of regrets or guilt or shame or whatever. And this is what I've seen also in people who are just before death. What torments them is not what they have not done. I didn't go there and I didn't do this and didn't do that. The regrets that really, really bother them is what they've done, which is negative. And sometimes it's small things. And tomorrow we'll talk a little bit how to help dying people. When you see that they are really agitated and not peaceful, it's very good to ask them, is there anything you want to say? And it's good if you're a neutral person, not somebody from the family, because sometimes they're so ashamed that they don't want to say.
But also anger. There's a lot of
anger.
I noticed that with my mother. This anger.
Yeah, anger is a big one when they're dying. Yeah. So again, you see, the anger, we can deal with it already now. Yeah. So
some of us, but some can't, because
we're not talking about those who are not here. We're talking about only the ones who are here now. Right? Because what others do this when they're not here, of course, then we cannot do. But those who listen to these things, you will get methods how to deal with your anger in a beneficial way, by not suppressing it and by also not living it out, but by having antidotes. And the best antidote is awareness. Is this this would be another one, but understanding the disadvantage of anger. Yeah, again and again and again, hearing about this, slowly, it starts to lose the grip on you. But then, of course, if already we get upset and angry at every little thing, now when it doesn't go the way we want it to go, can you imagine how it is at the time of death when nothing goes the way you want it to go? Yeah. So now again is the time to check and the time to practice, to be patient, to be accepting, say okay. And very often also in the West, like we do it the wrong way around. Like, for example, gratitude is a very, very positive and open and soft state of mind. But then we try to create gratitude we're not very skillful, because what we do, we think about all the things we have and we stop there and we think then gratitude should come. It doesn't come like that. It only comes when you go one step further and you imagine how it would be not to have it. This is how you meditate on the precious human rebirth. Yeah, how would it be to have a body which is full of pain? And then you go, but not. How would it be not to be provided with food and drink? Then you go, but I'm not. If you just say, I have this, you feel guilty. Because we can't imagine not having it. We take it for granted. So you have to make that step backwards and look at it. How would it be if I wouldn't have it? Do you understand? So, try to remember next time when you think and somebody says, but you should be grateful. Yeah. So then this is how you practice. Practicing means you're trying to have gratitude. Practice doesn't mean you have to have gratitude. Practicing means you use skillful means in order to develop it. This is the practice. And the skillful means in order to develop gratitude is you imagine how it would be not to have it. Then gratitude comes. Okay, so those are the disadvantages of not thinking about this. Then the benefits would be everything becomes beneficial. And this maybe you have seen in people who have accepted that their time which is left is very short. That all of a sudden their life became full of quality, as Nina was saying. Yeah, have you seen this personally also? Mm-hmm.
My cousin died a few months ago, and I went to visit him and his wife afterwards in the kitchen. She said, we had such a difficult what's it? Marriage. We had such a difficult. But these last 3 months, this was the best time in our life.
It's so sad that we have to wait until somebody gets really sick or, has this kind of fatal illnesses in order to be kind to them. It is so sad. It is so sad. I mean, if you look, I don't know if you know palliative care units. Would you like to go there?
Of course.
So you know it. These people who don't know it, when you hear palliative care, do you understand what you mean? Have you heard the word before?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, has to do, in people's heads is this is where you die.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So, I don't want to go there. I tell you, this is the hospital where they look at you and try to help you in all aspects. Your spiritual aspect, your mental aspect, they just make sure that you don't have pain. And everybody has time for you there. Because you're dying. Or you can't be helped. This is where people go when there's no more remedy for the sickness. So all you do is try to keep you comfortable with pain medication, but also not too much. And also you have a psychologist, you do art therapy, you do physiotherapy, you do everything. People come talk to you. It's paradise. Why do we have to wait until we have a fatal sickness in order to treat people in that way? Yeah. So don't be afraid of the palliative care. It is a really nice place, actually. So that's what I'm saying. It's sad that we have to wait to have this quality of life. It's only when we know that I'm going to lose it. Yeah. So it's good that once you know that you're going to lose it, still then you take advantage of it. But it can also be that you're going to lose it and you get all closed and all angry and all be like my brother. Nobody was allowed to talk about that he's dying. We had to fake that he's not dying. It's terrible. It's really terrible, really sad. But that's what he wanted, and this is what was respected, and that was it. He died in a peaceful way, though. But still, the last moments. But before, it was really, really difficult. Yeah. Okay, so you see also what Shantideva says, whatever the mind is used to, whatever the mind is familiar with it comes easy. Yeah. So if you start thinking about your own death, at the beginning it might be very frightening, and but then slowly you start to get used to it, and then your life will become different. Yeah, you put your priorities somewhere else, so everything becomes very beneficial. You practice sincerely and with energy. Your practice becomes powerful and pure because it's not just for this life; it's for future lives, and especially with this bodhicitta. How many of you have heard what bodhicitta is? Many, I guess, yeah. Bodhicitta is this, Johanna, you also, even though you're here for the first time, so you know what bodhicitta is, okay. So you see, whatever you do with bodhicitta, we will do the dedication. It's such a nice thing just to say, whoever sees me, hears me, thinks about me, even smells me or whatever, may it only be of benefit to them. It is such a nice mind to think like that. At the beginning, it's just blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But slowly, the blah, blah from here goes down to here. And then one is really happy when I see, I can benefit. It's wonderful. And also very often when people think in, dying moment and they can still talk, but they think that their life was so meaningless, then I asked them, did you harm anybody? They said no. I said, wow, can you imagine? Again, with this thing, you could have killed somebody with your car. Imagine killing a child with your car. You could have destroyed somebody's marriage. Well, you need to know that they didn't before you say that. Because I'm not joking, because if they, then, So again, telling them you have done this and this and this and this, it helps. But telling them what they have not done, which they could have done, which is harmful, it's much more beneficial, actually. You didn't destroy anybody's existence. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. You didn't do. So, yeah. So this is what I mean. This is a way you can help people to calm down. And ourselves also, when you think you're useless, you're depressed, you're burnt out, whatever, you're useless, you stay at home because you can't go out. Fantastic. You're not disturbing anybody's mind. You're not taking anybody's seat on the bus or on the train. You're not hungry, so you're not eating anybody's food. So there's nothing which is just not good. Everything has advantages and disadvantages. It's a matter of learning to think the right way. It's a matter of learning to start to observe your thoughts and see what kind of emotions they produce. And this you can learn, and then it becomes a habit. Yeah. Then it becomes a habit. And integrating death in your life, as we said, then you really start living. And you don't have to, again, we hear this story about Nina's friend, so we go, how can I ever open a hospital in Africa? Yeah, I couldn't. I wouldn't have the capacities to do that, but I can do other things. Like, for example, not harming anybody. Yeah. Saying hello to people, or meeting people in the street and just having the thought, may you be happy, training that. It changes your whole day. Instead of me, I wonder if I get, Like me this morning, I bought a small bread in the train station when I came, and then I was munching, and somebody calls me, somebody who knows me. I didn't even hear it. So I said, oh, yeah, I'm more my croissant than I'm kind of, totally absorbed in my eating this piece of bread. Yeah. When I don't, it's rare that I eat in the street. It's very, very rare. But I could see how distracting it is. Usually I see people when I walk around. I didn't see her. And it's somebody I know quite well, actually. So it's like, yeah, so like this. What else benefit we have? You practice sincerely with energy, powerful, pure. It is important at the beginning, at the end, and you die happily. So at the beginning, so that you start with the practice. In the middle, when it becomes boring, that you continue. And at the end, that you finish. And, wow, wonderful to go from this life with the thought, well done, isn't it? I lived. Maybe not such a, whatever fantastic life. If our goals are too high, if we think I can only be happy when I can do something really big, it's okay. It's the small people who change the world. It's not the big ones. We can change our behavior, we can, whatever. But we need to know. We need to know what we want. Is that okay? So there is some benefits. There's some disadvantages. Now, also, but of course, the Lamrim is a little bit, it's from, it's quite old. So in the West, I think it's also beneficial to think, what is the benefits of not thinking about death? There's nothing of that in the scriptures. What is the disadvantage of thinking about death constantly? Because otherwise we have a tendency, we just gobble it down, say, it's the only benefits and the only disadvantages if you don't think. But I'm not sure. We have a critical mind, so bring it in, use it, because otherwise it becomes like just swallowing it, and all of a sudden it goes like, no, inside, See also the other thing. How would it be not beneficial to think about death the whole time?
Maybe if it's too much, if you can't really hold it inside you, and then you make yourself crazy and
for example,
in fear or guilt because you feel like, I'm still doing the things that might not be so important.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about death.
Yeah.
It could be a suicidal.
Yeah, right. I'm going to die anyway, so I might as well die now.
I think also it will be difficult to have friends because if you go to lunch or wherever somewhere and nothing else, you can talk about anything else than death, then I think
right.
will not be so skillful.
Yeah. Okay.
Being around others.
Anything else?
I lead to inertia, paralysis. Why would you start something if you can't finish it if you're going to die?
Yeah.
Exactly. So you say, okay, so what's the point? You're not living anymore. Yeah. What is the advantage to not think about death? Do you see how, when I asked before, nobody had any answer. Now? What would be the advantage not to think like obsessively about death?
A lot of courage, fearless.
Yeah. And we engage in life, we start to, it's important as a spiritual practitioner, you engage in life. Don't, I just go to the cave and that's it. Unless your Lama tells you so. Yeah, okay, unless your master tells you so. That's what is happening here, so. Yeah, if you can be of benefit, I'll wait until I'm fully awake and then I'll be of benefit to others. It's not like that. You need to have the positive karma, the positive energy to be of benefit to others. Okay? So it's good to weigh up the two, to see like from all sides, not just so that you are prepared to use your critical mind in a good way. It's very important. That's what the Buddha encouraged us to do anyway. He said, don't believe anything I'm saying, but take it and use it and practice it and then see what happens in your life when you start to think about death often, when you start to integrate the possibility of death in your life. And also to start to think, to see how instinctively we talk. Like, for example, we make these two categories. I also make these two categories because I'm saying I'm going to see a dying person. This is totally wrong category because I'm also dying. We're all dying. Yeah, but it looks like I have a future. The dying person has no future anymore. So I'm not this is another thing which really hurts dying people because I don't know what to tell them. I don't know what to talk about with them. But it's enough. You're just there. And this is also, I told Nina in the break, you see the person that I'm staying with at the moment, and she kind of said, I'm such a burden for everybody. I said, no, you only become a burden when you think I can help you. If it's enough for you that I'm just here and I cook and I keep you company, that's fine. Then you're not a burden. But if I on myself put this thing, I have to help her, which I can't, then it becomes a burden. Do you understand? And this is important when you want to be with dying people, that you can't help them. It's enough to be there. But usually our ego is not happy with this enough to be there. It has to be a bit more. Yeah. Okay, so the Buddha said, take the teachings and use them, apply them and then see whether they work or not. Because Buddhism is not a belief or a devotion system, kind of, where you just believe in God and then Jesus and then that's it. Or you go a long way with that devotion and that belief. Buddhism is really an experience. You have to experience this whole thing to see whether it's true or not. Then it works. You have to give up all hopes and fears. Chogyam Trungpa. The bad news in Buddhism is, have you ever heard that saying? The bad news in Buddhism is, like, if you really understand what Buddhism says, the bad news is like falling from an aeroplane without a parachute. There's nothing you can be sure of, nothing you can grasp, nothing that is, that's the bad news. And the good news is...
But that's at a very advanced level. This concept of you can't grasp nothing, that's when you're very, very down the path. When even emptiness
but we can already start to look at it now, I think, Whatever we lose, we can say, well, anyway, it wasn't what it looked it is, like source for happiness or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you're right.
So what's the good
but what's the good news? There's no ground to crash. There's just continuity. It always continues somehow. When I go to Israel quite a lot, so also now this year was because of 75 years Auschwitz liberating the camp. Like when I go to Israel, there's a lot of, Holocaust, some people still living, very few, so sometimes when I have a problem, I think about these people that I know personally. I think, come on, they survived the Holocaust. What are you complaining about? So I'm very arrogant and very proud. This is why I can talk to myself like this. So I have quite a strong, solid I kind of thing. So I can be quite harsh with myself. Say, come on, stop your story here. Yeah. So there is continuity. So then that's the good news. There's no ground to crash. Okay. So we do a short reflection on impermanence, if that's okay with you. If you want to stand up before and shake your legs a bit, you're very welcome to do that. It's not a bad thing. Wriggle your body, get these energies flowing. Okay, then again, connect with your body. Make sure that it's comfortable. If you find it helpful to imagine that you're breathing with your whole body, then do that. So because the first step is to relax, next step is to make the mind stable, third step is to make the mind clear, but then this is more when you do formal meditation. So the main point is that we relax but are awake. We're so tense and we don't even notice it. Or the other way, that when you feel that there's a tension somewhere, like you scan the body, and it's usually the face and the chest. You go when you breathe in, you feel there the sensations. When you breathe out, you totally open up. There's nothing that threatens you at the moment here. Try to feel safe. Nobody wants anything from you. Everybody who is here, wants to develop a good heart. I mean, how wonderful is that? We're all here to become good people, to develop love, compassion, wisdom. Isn't that wonderful? You're not alone. Just that kind of being aware of that also relaxes. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to be anybody special. You're okay the way you are right now. Okay, so as we are connecting to the body, again, when we're not aware of it, it looks like it's a solid thing, not changing. From one day to the other, you look into the mirror, it looks as if you're looking at the same person. Unless you have an injury, nothing has changed. It looks like it. But try to be aware of a more subtle level, like the heart beating, lungs breathing, oxygen being kind of breathed in and then something changed and goes into the blood and all this. Liver working, kidneys working, intestines also working. Constant change, always something happening. Just connect with that we're not aware of that, but it's happening all the time. If you go down to an even more subtle level, like the cells renewing themselves, and as we grow older, this process becomes slower. Then if you think of the things surrounding you, they also look very stable, very solid. Like it looks as if you're sitting in front of the same table that you were sitting at the beginning when you came. Same cushion, same room. But if we would lock the room and nobody would kind of come in here for 100 years, even though nobody touches it, nobody does anything, it would look totally different. Try to imagine. So it's not just change, it always goes towards its decline. Something which is inbuilt on the relative level, that everything that comes together at one point will fall apart, because logically otherwise it could not come together. So then if you come back to yourself and maybe remember when you first saw or heard about this weekend that we're going to talk about death, what has changed since then? Then maybe you go further back, maybe a year. "10 years. "20 years. Now maybe some of you might not be able to go with your memory further back, but for the others, and can we see the change in this just few years, few decades? Maybe if you think of the place you grew up, if you have visited it recently, how much that has changed. The things we use, how much they have changed the last 50 years. So then try to get a sense of I, me, in this whole process of everything changing all the time. We can see that the body has changed from being a baby, child, teenager, young person, old person. We can see the mind has changed, reacts differently. But what about I, me? Does that feel as if it has changed as well, or does it feel it is a constant, solid thing that doesn't change? The sense of I or me that we have. So here also you hear sound. Sound comes together because there's certain causes and conditions. And sound is impermanent. Why? Because it's a product. Whatever comes together to causes and conditions at one point will fall apart. Every meeting ends in separation. Every living ends in death. When the causes for the sound are finished, the sound is finished. Okay. Thank you. So now the task or the practice is that you eat lunch, because now it's lunchtime, as if this is your last meal. I don't know how it works here, we'll see, because of course when we did this in Tushita, then people are in silence. Yeah, so they go, it's my last lunch, so I need to sit at a nice place. And I take only the nice things, like, you know, and then all of a sudden you start to enjoy. It doesn't matter what is in your plate, it doesn't matter where you sit, because you start to experience it. You are with your lunch. You're not, oh, what shall I do tomorrow? Yeah, so it's quite, instead of depressing us, actually, it really opens up. But also, even there, everybody was in silence. Maybe out of the people, maybe 5% did it. All the others, by the time you were at lunch, we forgot that we're supposed to do this as your last lunch. And here, since, you know, it's only we're together the weekend, it's fine if you talk. If you want to talk, you connect with each other. It's also very important. But if you want to eat in silence, it's okay. You know, you just, if somebody wants to come and chat, you say, I'd rather you eat in silence. It's fine. We respect other people's wishes also. Do you have any questions about what we just did here, or comments or remarks? Or did you feel this I? Did it feel different? Exactly the same. Small baby, 70-year-old woman, same I. How can that be? Yeah, so this is the mistake, that we're clinging to this I as if it's real. We do have an I, we have a self. This is like the label for this combination of body and mind. Yeah, that's it. There is, but we project through this cognitive kind of mistake that we're making. We project an I, a me, a third entity into this combination of body and mind, and that doesn't go with the flow. That is the problem. That is the one who doesn't want to die, because who makes the problem when it's dying, because we identify with it, and then it's depending on thoughts. You know, you didn't feel it while you were just looking at body and going back and this and that, did you? The moment I say, look at your sense of I, what happens? What happened? Maybe you need to do it a few times, then you'll feel it. What happens? It jumps in. So where was it before? If it really exists from its own, I mean, this one is here, relatively existing. It can't be here and not seeable. Okay? And especially this feeling of permanence, this I is the same I. That is the mistake that we are making. We don't have a third entity. All we are is a body and a mind, changing moment by moment by moment by moment. Of course, we have memory, so we know who we are. That's fine. Yeah. But, an independent, unchanging I, this is totally impossible, because the I that remembers something must be different than the I that doesn't remember something. Or the I that experienced something must be different from the I that didn't experience it yet, but it feels as no, it's the same. And that's absurd. And if you're totally confused now, that's a good sign. Because if you say at the beginning, you hear to say, yeah, I understand, then we're blocked. Yeah.
Isn't it so that, I mean, people could still, if there's a step, people could still recognize that they have changed in the past, or that there's been impermanence when looking how they've evolved to the present self.
Yeah.
When projecting in the future, then it's even more difficult to acknowledge the fact that your
it
current
changes.
state is also non-permanent, that also is also going to change. So that yourself in 5 years or even just tomorrow is going to be different.
And what happens is, like this sense of I, it looks as if we're dragging it along to another life. We're not, otherwise we could remember past lives also, probably. Because it's a good example. It's like Geshe Tashi, when we were doing the retreat in Graz. Every afternoon he sent us into the forest because it's summer, very hot. And so he said, go and sit in the forest and look for your eye. Find your eye, and then you come back 6 o'clock and then you tell me what it is. So I was sitting there on the grass in the forest, and I saw these insects having a war with each other. There were ants, and there was a worm, and they were tearing it apart and all this. So I took an ant onto my finger, and I believe in rebirth, and I know these 6 young. So I thought, do you believe that you could be reborn as an ant? I said, yeah, I do. Then, do you believe that you can become a Buddha? Yeah, I do. But I will still be the same I. You see, this is when I talk about experience, when it comes, not in a teaching like that. You hear the teaching, but then something happens, and then you sit, you don't even meditate, you sit somewhere, and tack, and always it becomes clear. This sense of I that I have the illusion, I still have it when I'm a Buddha, or in my next life, this is wrong. This is the mistake. Or thinking I'm an ant, but I'm still Rita or Losang now. It's also interesting when you change your name, by the way. Yeah. So that's what we need to understand. Not putting a right attitude over a wrong attitude, but understanding the wrong view or the wrong attitude as a wrong attitude. Then the right thing is already there.
And you said that this I creates the fear of death. Right?
Yeah, because you lose your identity.
Because what you said before, you said there is a person who was afraid of dying because she thought that nothing exists anymore.
Yeah.
And I had the same fear, or I still have it. When I was 15, it was like my biggest fear. And I don't believe that it's really, I think it's really this attachment of the I, of losing identity.
Because it disappears, the thing who is in control, the thing who plans, the thing who knows everything what's going on and all this. And we talked this afternoon about the death absorptions, and you might see something, because same thing happens when we go to sleep. So sometimes, and most of the people have experienced it, after you've gone to sleep, you have a feeling of falling into a bottomless pit. Even though you're lying on your bed, and you wake up and you don't know who you are. Because the sense of I, which is depending on thought, has absorbed for a short moment, it's not there. And then that's so confusing. Because you see, this whole world that we're creating to our identity, it's all false. It's just labels. There's nothing real. It's totally false. But you're not becoming chaotic when you know that, because there is still conventional reality where there is an I, there is a me, But let's say this I, me is something like a cover. Okay, this is the label I, me, and what is the basis of this I, me is constantly changing. Yeah, like you're a baby, you have small body, and you have like a baby mind, and this and that. Then you learn things, you grow up. This one stays the same, but this is just a label. It's not a possessor of body and mind. Do you see what I mean? You need to hear this for a few times about the absence of an absence of that dysfunctions, this label that we give. Yeah. So if you say, "Oh, the self is the body and the mind together," yeah, okay, that's fine. That's the view of the lower schools. That's okay. It's okay when we start like this. There's no third entity. There is a body changing all the time. There's a mind changing all the time. But there's continuity. This is why we can remember. Yeah. And then, wow, at the time of death, imagine when you go, "Oh, I wonder what comes next." Ooh. Then it will be exciting instead of being frightening. But this I, we will probably, this projected I, we will probably have to leave it behind. Not just probably, we will have to leave it behind. But what we take with us is this I here. The merely labeled I. This we take. And then it gets in your body and in your mind. This is how karma works. Karma goes with this merely labeled I. Yeah. Which also has all the time subtle mind and the subtle body at the time of death. We talk about this afternoon. Now it's lunchtime. So we'll meet again in 1 hour and a quarter. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah? Like at 2:30. 2:30? Okay. Thank you. And enjoy your lunch. It might be your last. And wouldn't it be a shame if you did not enjoy your last lunch? Wouldn't it?